Okay, well, thank you all very much for joining our webinar today. This is it feels like it's been actually quite a few weeks since we've had our last one. A lot's been going on here at bluShift. Thank you guys all very much for being here. Just a real quick refresher. I think everybody knows this, but who is bluShift? We are a rocket launch service, and we're providing this service using a proprietary, non-toxic, carbon neutral biofuel. We were, back in 2021, the very first company in the world to launch a rocket commercially using a biofuel. And what we do is we build custom hybrid rocket engines in-house. They use our solid fuel, that proprietary fuel, and our liquid oxidizer to propel things to space, not people. We're very excited, as you'll hear. We got to visit with some of our end users and customers who are students going to be launching things to space with us. So let me just kind of go through some of the updates of things that have happened in the last couple of weeks since we've last chatted. First of all, David, our CTO, who was just here in this room next to me, in that room over there with the other engineers and had to take off moments ago. David Hayrikian, our CTO, he actually went and presented at Shot Glass in Germany on advanced sustainable propulsion. It was a audience of researchers there at Shot, and ultimately got shared with all the employees at Shot. But we also, if you look, we are actually sharing his entire presentation on our YouTube channel. Lindsay will post that YouTube channel here shortly, and you can see his full presentation. It was really well done, and David is also an incredible CTO for our team. So let me give you guys an update on where we stand with engine tests. So back in the very beginning of December, we wrapped up our last engine test. It was our longest burn yet. You guys heard it, it was a bit fuel rich. The guys have been heavy at redesigning the engine, making tweaks and changes to it, part of the natural iteration of the development of this full-size engine. And so we are about to punch the order button on a number of custom parts we're going to have made and machined. We've made some serious modifications to the oxidizer injectors, and the whole combustion chamber is changing its length, and we have now adjusted the way we're manufacturing the fuel. The nozzle at the fiery bit, as I like to call it, is actually, that was just ordered this today. So a new nozzle is on it's going to be manufactured in the upcoming weeks. So all the parts are finally getting ordered and made, some of them made in-house. We expect that the next engine test will occur as early, I think that's the best way to promise it, as early as mid-March. Depends on how many things line up here. Weather has been playing a factor, as it always does here in Maine. It's been uncommonly balmy until the last few weeks, and now winter has finally decided to land in Maine. Usually this happens many, many weeks before now. So yeah, we're very excited about that. This next engine test, it'll be a short burn, but it's going to be at a higher pressure level in our combustion chamber. We should see higher performance, a higher ratio of oxidizer to fuel. You should see that, that flame should be a lot tighter. I expect a little less yellow, and my bet is we should not see it extend all the way to the blast wall at the end of our test site. And I see there's actually some folks who've been here to actually view our engine tests in the past, some multiple occasions, from seeing some of the names here. So it's nice to see you folks here on board joining the chat. So, okay, another exciting development in the last few weeks is that our customer, MaxIQ Space, is touring across the state right now. That's the state of Maine. They're rolling out a really novel space STEM kit program with the K through 12 schools, several K through 12 schools here in the state of Maine. There's 15 pilot schools ranging from rural to urban, up and down the state. We got the chance to join with them with one of the schools a week ago, and we're going to do another one tomorrow. And we're really excited because this is just the beginning of the training programs where they're really training more the teachers on how to use the kits and the whole training curriculum they have to go with it. I actually got a hands-on opportunity to play with their kits. Really cool. And I think in the next coming 6 to 8 weeks, students will be participating in that training curriculum. If that whole program goes well, we're really excited because this could become a model not only for our home state here in Maine, but we anticipate that this model, we might be able to duplicate it together with MaxIQ as a really close partner of ours, and duplicate this academic science module program with all the states and territories in the Union and in the United States, let alone outside of the country. So we're very, very excited about that because the potential here, something like 16,000 school districts in the United States. And, the cost for these schools is not much more than the cost of football jerseys. So we're very excited to just begin what is going to be truly a greenfield opportunity for bluShift and for MaxIQ. It's a very exciting time. Okay, let's see. We have a question. I just want to quickly dip in here. We have a question here from, and thanks. I'm going to try to answer questions as they come in a little bit, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end too, of course, as we normally do. But Jen Rosalier was asking, where are our rocket components manufactured? Okay, so a lot of them are, of course, manufactured here at the former Naval Air Station at Brunswick Landing, but pretty much everything else is made, I would say pretty much everything else is made in the United States. We use a number of partners to do CNC milling, lathing work, especially for our major components. There are some off-the-shelf components that we buy that, ultimately are probably, manufactured from across the world. But we definitely focus on getting products made here and components made here in the United States. Okay, so now on to some other really exciting updates. So another win for us as investors is anything we can do that's non-dilutive for you guys, for us. And part of that was an award and a grant that we got we got from NASA, along with the Roux Institute. The Roux Institute is a relatively new organization or institute here in the state of Maine. It's very strongly connected with Northeastern University out of the Boston area. They have a heavy focus on cybersecurity, AI, a lot of tech. It's a really innovative educational program based here in Maine. And the grant that which we secured along with them was an EPSCoR RID. EPSCoR stands for, we had to look this up. I know EPSCoR from hearing it so often, but it stands for Established Program to Stimulate Competitive Research. And RID stands for Research Infrastructure Development. So this is really a program that seed funds projects to build each state's research and development capacity, R&D capacity, that align with NASA's goals or research areas, right? And in many ways, these will be grants that will be precursors to future SBIRs, SBIR grants that we might go ahead with, or STTRs if we're working in conjunction with a university or institute like the Roux Institute. So it's a really exciting project we're working through. We're basically working with the Roux Institute to use AI to help us design design major components of our launch vehicle. And specifically for this particular grant, what's being done is looking at using hybrid 3D printing technology. So using two different 3D printing technologies simultaneously to optimize weight and strength for major components of our launch vehicle. In this case, we're very eager to apply some of this technology that comes out of this grant, possibly to our oxidizer injection system. So we're very excited about that. The Brew Institute folks are really wonderful people, very creative, innovative group of people, hardworking, and we've been really pleased with working with them so far. But David Hayrakian is really, our CTO is really the one heading up the work there, and we're very excited. I think he's very excited to see the outcome and the results of this initial research, because it's really going to tell us what materials and what we're really capable of doing with the 3D printers, and that if it can really hold up to the sort of the rigorous environments that we are going to have to put this through. This extreme heat, extreme cold, and of course, extreme pressures and extreme no pressures, vacuum. Okay. In other fantastic news, we were accepted into the Mass Challenge Decarbonization Accelerator. This is the very first of its type for this decarbonization version of the Mass Challenge for this program. So we're very excited to be one of the cohorts into this program. This is our second accelerator. Our first one was a Dirigo Labs accelerator, which was excellent, based out of here in Maine. And we just kicked that off this week, and it's been a lot of work already, very intense. But it's also allowed us to create contacts within and mentors within Google Space and IBM, and potentially some investment connections as well. So we're very, very excited about that. And then what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to share the screen real quick to share with you guys what we have going on later next month, February. So we are very proudly a gold sponsor of the Next Generation Suborbital Researchers Conference, based out of Colorado. This happens once every 2 years in normal times. In COVID times, it hits bumps. This is in Broomfield, Colorado. This is the suborbital, in my mind, this is the suborbital conference to go to. This is appealing to exactly our target audience of research customers, whether they're civil researchers, academic researchers, etc. So it's very exciting, and we are a gold sponsor. And as you can see, we are with many other well-regarded organizations and institutes in sponsoring this program. So additionally, we've actually submitted an abstract about our biofuel hybrid propulsion system, and actually the development of the whole Starless Rogue rocket itself. And we'll actually be doing an oral presentation about this during the conference. So I highly recommend, if any of you have curiosity, interest in suborbital research, this is the conference to go to. And it's just a month away. Okay, let me just stop sharing for a second. And what I'd like to do right now is, and I apologize, I guess the screen was black, so my apologies that it turned out to be black. But check out, I'll pop in here to everybody the link to the conference. I apologize just because I don't want to leave you guys all hanging wondering what that was. But that is the link to the conference, so you guys can check it out. We're very excited about that. Actually, just side note about that conference, that it was I think it was the last time this conference was run, was when we last did a big portion of our customer discovery process, where we interviewed suborbital customers to find out what do they really want. And that's where we learned out they want more volume. They want to have more space to send their payloads up. They want us to keep the G loading levels, how fast we accelerate to space, are below 6 Gs. That's also where we found that they fundamentally, nobody else, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, others, nobody was offering more than a minute or two, maybe 3 of 0 G time in space. And we're going to be doubling that time. So if it wasn't for that conference, we wouldn't have been able to interview so many potential customers to understand how are we going to design our suborbital launch services. So we're going to be doing that again, and you betcha we're going to be interviewing more customers to make sure we're really honing our service just right. We have a question here from somebody who's asking, when are we closing our funding round? So the funding, this current Safe Note funding round with our equity crowdfunding round, and this will probably be our very last one, will close February 21st. So just a month from now. So about 4 weeks from now. So this is it. We're in the last mile of this equity crowdfunding. That's, it's really made what we've done to date possible. And so, yeah, this is where we really need your guys' help to, reach out to friends and family or other colleagues who are passionate about aerospace, passionate about doing things in a more carbon neutral way, in a more earth friendly way. Perhaps people who are interested in seeing STEM really encouraged in our schools, and you understand how getting space science and space experiments into the kids' of hands is really very valuable for our future and our competitiveness as not only as humanity, but of course as our nation. Or like in states such as our home state or rural states, showing how this can be done no matter how rural you are, no matter how urban or everywhere in between you are. Kids of all ages can get intrigued, curious, and involved in STEM, and consider that as a potential career of one shape or form or another. Okay, we have another question from John Rockwell. Yes, it's nice to see you on here as well. John, I've talked to you a couple of times. Let's see. He asks, when do you plan to launch the first launch with a payload, and where will it be first from? Okay, so you guys have heard this kind of go back and forth, when, where, and so a lot of this is fundamentally funding dependent, right? So for instance, we have to do a big dispersion study. We're going to be using the Aerospace Corporation to help us do a dispersion analysis for this. These are very expensive things. We're also simultaneously working with the FAA to get our CFR 450, which is basically allows us to get license our future launch site and our launch vehicle and our launch technologies. And we are actually at a point where we've been working with the FAA for several months, and we need to raise probably between $300,000 and $500,000 to fund the environmental impact study, which is really critical and important for us to go forward with the launch site that the town of Steuben here in Maine has voted and agreed upon to allow us to do. But we need to get that environmental impact study behind us. To do that, we have to raise about, $300,000 to $500,000 just to get that going. So our hopes and desires was that this round of funding would get us there. And this round of funding has been tremendous. It's enabled us to continue forward, to continue engine to test, to continue the R&D that the guys are doing over there. But we haven't been able to raise as much money as we wanted to do that EIS, environmental impact study. So, that's part of the reason why we're going to ultimately be pivoting into the larger seed round here in March. But if we can raise this $300,000 to $500,000, that's a month or 2 or 3 faster than we can get to the environmental impact study. This is really critical to us. And the reason why I mentioned that is this is all it's a game of dominoes, or a sort of reverse dominoes. We need to set all these things up months in advance to be able to get to launch. So when we can't get that delays everything else. And of course, we have to finish refining the engine and lightweight it, et cetera. So my very lengthy way of saying right now, I think absolutely the very best scenario, if funding opened up, if we can really get everything we want to do in parallel instead of in series done that we want to do, because there's so many things I think the team has identified that we could do from an engineering, a manufacturing standpoint in parallel. Right now, we just can't afford to do. We need to be focused our efforts on a serial effort because of limited resources, which is not a bad way to do things. It's just, unfortunately, not good time-wise. 12 months is very optimistic, and I think 18 months, unfortunately, is probably more realistic in terms of the time frame. Now, where would we do it? Well, we've been working with Wallops, and Wallops has been, as you might have seen the news, very distracted with a certain excellent small launch vehicle company called Rocket Labs, who had it looks like a successful launch just last night. I got to see just part of it. And in fact, a young student who's been creating models of Starless Rogue, who lives here in Maine, was able to go out his front door. And while we couldn't see it from here and going out here of the hangar, he was able to see, even from Maine, that rocket launching from, Electron launching from Wallops, which is amazing. So I'm jealous that he got to see that. So we are focused on Wallops, and previous to that, we were looking at Kennedy. However, things are not moving as fast as you might expect they would. And so we are, I would say, John, that it is open to discussion where we're ultimately going to be launching from. In fact, we've now opened up discussions with additional pre-existing launch sites. And, it's really a question about cost and how quick they can react. How quick can they work with us? We've been working with NASA for a bit now, and things have not gone quite as quickly as we kind of would hope. So we'll see what happens. But one way or another, we're going to go to launch. Okay, Roger Austin asks, he says, congratulates, woohoo, non-dilutive funding. Yes, we're going to be doing more than that. In fact, I believe we are targeting about once a month to 2 months, we are going to apply for additional grants. NASA and other SIBRs, NSF, we are not short for ideas. We're not short for people who we want to hire, but we can't afford to hire. There's a number of folks we have been in communications with in the last several months that we really, really, really want to bring on board. And we're hoping that we can do that maybe with some of these grants. And of course, the most important part of this is this non-dilutive. And I think one thing that we've learned early on is we need to make sure when we apply for these grants, and it can't be just a distraction to kind of keep people employed. It needs to be firmly in line with our milestones as a company, what we want to achieve to get to launch, to get to our minimum viable product, which is the launch of Starless Rogue Beta. So stay tuned to that. Yeah, AI is incredible. I think it's kind of blowing away the world in terms of what it can do, whether it's ChatGPT, DALL-E, or whatever. But we are, I think, not slowly, but we are beginning to embrace its strengths. And certainly we've been, whether it's generative design or other opportunities with software that supports AI, we are very fortunate to have some really good software partners with Siemens to help us, and also ANSYS to help us provide a software that allows us to do some of these really cool AI enhanced design work. Very cool, very cool. All right. All right, I see Felix, you asked, it would be nice to hear us discuss our roadmap and timeline. Sure. So I'd be happy to, so you heard a little bit of the timeline. Let me give you a short timeline. And, this is something we can go into, like full-fledged update on the timeline, perhaps in our next webinar, which we'll have in maybe about 2 weeks from now. But so very shortly, what's going on is our very next tweak of the Marvel engine should be up and running, and we'll be able to do initial test of that, the new rev of the design by March. But we hope to get it to its full burn optimization by June. And the plans are about that time to sort of lean in hard on the design, the complete design of Starless Rogue, really from an engineering standpoint. Now that we've really honed in the engine, now we can finish building the rest of the design of Starless Rogue, doing simulations to aerodynamic simulations, and make sure it gets to where we want to go into space. And we have a lot of work to do with the FAA, Aerospace Corporation, and then and other partners to get us so we can get our CFR 450 approval for launch. And depending on the launch site that we end up using, there's an additional potential approval process, whether it's NASA has one. If we have to go from from Kennedy, there's a different one. Very similar to NASA's, and then if we choose another one like a private, public-private launch site, there's other ones. So a lot of work that's to be done there. But the whole idea is we really want to get to launch within 18 months at the absolute maximum. We are considering doing backing off. We might do a very basic test launch. I think that's within the realm of possibilities. Our customers, the students and the researchers, Some of them might be on board for doing a relatively low altitude, maybe several miles up. And this might be a good way for us to test all of our systems, our telemetry, our radio links, and of course the operation of the vehicle itself, recover in the waters, make sure that all works out well, et cetera. So allow me to go into much further detail in a future webinar. I think that's a fantastic thing for us to kind of cover and review with everybody. Okay, so okay, we have another question here from Don Higgins. Hello, nice to see you again. If I remember correctly, during the last test, you had some STEM students loaded up at some of the monitoring sensors and start analyzing the data and have a webinar on the results. Do you still plan on having the webinar? Yes, we I think optimistically thought we could have the webinar before now, but we had to give time for the students to get back from Christmas and the holiday vacation there. My understanding, they have downloaded the data. They've begun. We've been interacting with the teachers from there, and we're finalizing on. So ITAR kind of comes into play in a weird way, and we're just making sure all the bases are covered because, here's something that's collecting data. It's strapped to our engine. So we just need to make sure we're doing everything from an ITAR perspective perfectly. And once we're good with that, I think I would expect that. It's possible that during our next webinar, we could have those students on board. We're really curious to see some of their data. I think some of the interesting data that they're not only this most recent test will have, but future ones is about what's in the exhaust, what's the particulates they're seeing, what, the temperatures, pressures that are being seen. There's some, and let alone the vibrations. It's going to be very, very, very interesting to see this. Okay. All righty, let's see here. Okay, keep the questions coming. So the WeFunder campaign is live now, and Lizzie will post the link on there for the campaign. This is equity crowdfunding. This has really been an unusual. I don't think there's too many rocket companies that have been doing equity crowdfunding, and certainly the way we've been doing it. And it's been, this all started when we launched Stardust, which is behind me in different components. That was covered by the BBC, and nationally. And then we had the very next day, perhaps many of you on this call right now saw that launch live. In fact, I know some of the folks I see here did. And it was literally the days after that where I got an email. It was humorous. I got an email, probably every 5 to 8 minutes asking how could they invest in bluShift. And at that time, we were going down a more traditional route of fundraising. That's when we realized, well, we could do equity crowdfunding, and we have people asking from all over the United States and all over the world how to invest in us. And that was a way to sort of open our doors to allow people to invest in us from all walks of life. So it's been a really incredible experience. It continues to be, and it's been really neat to not only have this dialogue with you guys on these webinars, but I've been really, I should say our whole team has been really fortunate to have many of you as our investors come here to our offices here at the hangar 6, and also attend the engine test at the far end of the runway. And of course, many of you who couldn't do this in person have been able to do it through YouTube. And I've been trying to lean in heavily so that not only am I there to help comment and what's going on behind the scenes, but answer your questions live. And I've really enjoyed that experience and dialogue with all of you. And it's something that we want to continue not only right up to the end of this campaign, but beyond. I think it's a really, it's invigorating for me personally, but for the whole team. And I think it demonstrates to you what we are doing with your money, with your investment. And I hope that you see that probably more so than most aerospace companies that we see in the media today, we are doing a lot with what is not much money in the scheme of things when it comes to other new space companies. Here we're developing an engine that is roughly 4 to 5 times more powerful than each engine that was powering Rocket Labs, the Rocket Labs rocket last night. This is incredible, and we're doing it with a fuel that in the early days we were told could not be done. Carbon, not only a carbon neutral fuel, but a non-toxic biofuel. People just didn't think it was possible. So it's an incredible journey, and we want to continue with you guys on this journey. On that front, we expect over the next couple of months to kick off our seed round of funding, and we're looking to raise, I believe it's $4 million is where we're locking in to. This is to power us all the way through launch and commercialization, to which we'll be doing then we anticipate we'll be doing a Series A round at that time. So stay tuned. Okay, I don't know if there was any other questions to see if. Okay, I see another question in here from Felix asking, I know you were focused on small payload launch market, but can your biofuel and technology eventually be scaled up to be used for the largest payload? So the type of rocket technology we use, hybrid rockets, they're sort of the underdog of the rocket world. It's the least studied of the traditional rocket chemical technologies. And there's certainly it's been used a lot for many decades, but it fits in a space. It's not quite as optimal as liquid fuel rockets in terms of performance, not quite as simple as solid rockets, but better performance than those, and certainly much safer than either in many conditions. So as a result, the history of ramping up these engines is limited to diameters as maybe 3 or 4 feet in diameter. And I think you start looking at rockets if you want to use this as an engine that's for very large vehicles. We would have to really be breaking new ground, which I think is not an issue. I don't think that there's I think there's plenty of room for us to do it. It's not our focus right now, but there isn't a technical reason this couldn't be scaled later on. People have encountered instabilities when you get to bigger versions of hybrid rocket engines, but hey, heck, we have encountered instabilities with our engine every step of the way. It's part of developing the engine and making sure it works efficiently and stably. And so my guess is that if we wanted to, we could keep on scaling this up. So great question. I see that John S. asks, will the next funding round be on WeFunder as well? So our current plans are, unless something changes, unless you guys vote really heavy, our plans are to do a more traditional seed round to raise this $4 million. If somehow you guys can convince me we could raise $4 million on WeFunder, which certainly has been done before, I don't have a problem. I love doing this in WeFunder. I love interacting with you guys. I love sharing what we're doing, and I really feel like it democratizes investment in doing something in a cleaner, more earth-friendly way, in a way that's better for our planet. But also, I'm personally really excited about how we are engaging really young students to people who are about to be professionals. If you're interested in that, you think we can do this and we can reach that 4 million raise, help us. Invest more, reach out to friends and family, colleagues. I'm all in. If we can, there's no reason why technically we couldn't raise that 4 million on WeFunder in the next 4 weeks. We have all the SEC filings in that enable us. We have all the paperwork that enables us to raise right up to, I think it's actually up to 5 million in this particular round. So there's no reason we couldn't do that. But we can't. Our plans are to move forward on the seed round. Okay. More questions here. Okay, John Karp. Oh, hi, John. Another John who I know. He points out that NASA has stability issues as well. Yes, we've seen that. It's inherent with rocket engines. Every time you scale it, you change something. Performance is important, but the first thing you got to nail down is stability. It's hard. But it's a known process. It's a known what you got to. I shouldn't say it's a known process in terms of the sequencing, but it's not necessarily known ahead of time what the solutions always are. Let's see. John Rockwell asks, what are my thoughts on Virgin Orbit? Launched 9 satellites atop a rocket, dropped from a 747 jumbo jet south of Ireland on Monday, but the booster suffered a failure during the climb to space and payloads were lost, said the company. Yeah. So unfortunately, rockets are not as reliable as the things that they are sometimes affixed to, like 747 jumbo jet. It just, that level of reliability is not there. You know, you're with rocket launches, you're inherently pushing the materials to extreme levels in terms of balancing lightweightness with the material's abilities, and more so than you do in commercial airliners. Commercial airliners that threshold, the safety threshold is much higher. And of course, you have plenty of oxygen to breathe in for propulsion, whereas we don't have that luxury with rockets. So yeah, definitely, it's a bummer. You know, I feel for the successes and the failures for our competition. You know, this is still a small world in terms of those companies that are trying to get things to space. There's many companies attempting, but you know, with the many billions of people on the planet, there's really only just a handful of organizations out there trying to do it that are non-governmental. So yeah, it's a bummer. I wish they were more successful. I think, but I'm sure they will try it again. And it's just a question of doing it over and over and getting it right and improving each time. Don Higgins asked everybody, Don Higgins asked if we are allowed to tell you, and we most certainly are, how much have you raised so far on WeFunder to date? So we have raised about 1.3 million. WeFunder takes their little percentage out of that. So it's probably a hair less than that. A couple points are taken off for WeFunder. But again, I mean, $1.3 million. Look at what we've done since we started our very first campaign, and with $1.3 million. It's really amazing. That said, you know, we're actually looking, I should say, some of the stuff that we're looking at are some phase 2 SBIRs that will enable us to get similar funding that's non-dilutive. And these are some options that we're looking at. But it's incredible, I think, to see all the things we've accomplished with a really smart, resilient, gritty team that knows how to do a lot more with not necessarily a lot, frankly, with a lot less in many cases. So I think we're very fortunate to be doing it here in Maine, where sort of the costs in general are very low. Here at this former Naval Air Station, this hangar, you know, we're very fortunate to have an organization, Mira, who runs this whole campus, that really enables us to do what we're doing and do it at a very low cost. We are actually now not the only aerospace company doing rocket engines. There's one just down the road at our former location that's doing some really neat sort of space-based propulsion systems. One using, I believe, more like RF powered propulsion systems. So some really neat stuff's going on here. So I encourage any of you who may have interest in starting your own aerospace company to consider Brunswick, Maine as a hub to do your business. It's a state that welcomes it. Organizations like the Maine Technology Institute has been one of our best investors in effect to date. That really is looking to grow the high-tech industry within here in Maine, and specifically here at this location within aerospace. Okay. Did I miss any questions? Let's see. I think that's it. Okay. So thank you all very much for attending this webinar. We're very excited, and we will have another one in about 2 weeks. And I'm hoping those students can get on board with it. We'll look at providing, Felix, we'll look at providing a more detailed timeline of what's going to be going on, everything right up through Red Dwarf, or orbital launch vehicle. And I just want to put out a teaser there that we are going to be tweaking our niche market focus. And it may actually not come to as a super surprise to some of you, but we see an incredible opportunity that none of our competitors are doing today. And it's an opportunity for us to grow market. I mean, I love going to markets that where we can create it, and we're not having to necessarily take away from our competition or steal or nuzzle our way in. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I want to share that with you guys. in the, I think in the next webinar. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the hard work the team's been doing. It's getting cold, it's getting snowy out there. A lot of hard work's being done by Aaron, Doug, Gerard, Luke, David, Lindsay, and other folks on the team. And so a big thanks to them and all their hard work that never really gets shown when you see my face here, but gets really shown when we do engine tests, when we're covered by the media, and of course our amazing advancements forward. So, and also a lot of our non-dilutive funding is thanks to this group of individuals. And we're already looking at some individuals that we might be able to bring on board come late spring too. So we're very excited. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day, and looking forward to talking to you again in about 2 weeks.